All right, hi. This is going to be a fairly quick tutorial. We're going to talk about how to do some geometry things related to Gothic cathedrals in Fusion 360. And I'm showing you guys a few different techniques. A lot of the things that I'm going to do are going to be based off of the reading that you have for April 2nd in Sakai that is called Tips and Tricks for Gothic Sculpture, Gothic Design. So the geometry that we're going to talk about is going to be some stuff that you've seen before. So I want to sort of start at the real basics here. You all have access to a few projects. If you follow the shared folder, there's going to be a little folder called, or shared project, there's a little folder called shared sample models in geometry. So we have the flamboyant rose window. This is a practice project I've been working on very recently. Flamboyant being the style after Rayonnance. So like I deliberately chose this because it's a really it's a really interesting and complicated example, far more complicated than anything I expect you all to do, but it's worth sort of investigating some of the geometry in there. And then this geometry file just has sketch files in it, just different samples of things so you can see what the little guidelines look like. This is a parametric vault. If I have time, I'm going to show you that in this one as well. Parametric simply means parameters, so you can add in a length and a width to this particular vault, four-part vault, and it'll sort of automatically just change the height and the shape of the model to fit that particular input that you have. So if you guys stick to really like strict measurements, you can just sort of throw this file into your final projects if you'd like. So you don't have to, but it might be something useful for you if you're working with a four-part vault, just to make that part go faster. And then the last thing I might show, I'm hopeful to show you guys just a little ambulatory vault that I did, because it's a little bit more complicated than what we did before. Not by a lot, just by a little bit. Just because the ambulatories kind of don't have that regular shape. So let me start just in a regular design, and let's just look at some of the stuff that we might be able to do with medieval geometry. So let's create a sketch here. I'm going to start on the I'm going to switch my view to be looking at the front. I'm going to choose this view. So there are lots and lots of tools. I did some work here to put a lot of the tools that I'm going to use a lot at the top scroll bar. So let me close this up. So the way you do that is if for instance, I want this tangent arc to be on the toolbar, I just click on it here and say pin to toolbar. I'm not going to use that one a lot, so I'm going to leave it open. But let's start with one of the ones that I do use a lot. So let's start with an edge polygon. So this one right here means that you're going to draw a single edge. Now right now I actually have snapping to grid off, so I'm going to turn it on just temporarily. I'm going to turn that off very soon though. So I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to say this is going to be for an arch, so I'll say it's 2 meters across. Okay, and I'll zoom out. So here's my 2-meter long line, and I want to make sure that it stays horizontal. And I'll maybe have to correct that in a minute. But what it does is right after I draw the first one, then it's saying, okay, up or down, right? And also how many sides. So right now it's set to 6. I'm going to switch that to 3. And then I have an equilateral triangle, right? If I want to make sure that everything stays nice and flat and even, I'm going to add a constraint just to be certain. I'm going to add this to a horizontal and vertical, so it makes sure that that's flat on the bottom. So really this is super easy to do. When you have an equilateral triangle, we've done this before, you can just know that if you do a center point arc, that it's going to look like this. Okay, this is a really common arch. All right. When we have an isosceles triangle, so let's do that. we've done this before, but I want to just refresh us a little bit. Get it straight in our minds. Okay. So what I'm going to do is to make sure that it's perfectly isosceles, I'm just going to take this and this, and I'm just going to add a quick mirror. Okay, so that's down here. Okay. All right, so from this one, we've done this before. From the center point, you're just trying to find where is the location that crosses right here. Okay, right. At the base, where does this cross where this becomes, what a tragic location for it. That is not intentional, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this out of the way so we get a little bit more space. And I'll just do that with a simple move really quick. Alright, let's try that again. So from here, we're going to go out, stay perpendicular, and then when it hits both perpendicular and on the baseline, that is going to be the location for the radius, for the center of the circle that forms the arch right here. So what I'll do, just to make this super fast, I'll go center point arch and go right to there. And since we already have this center line, even easier, we can just do a quick mirror, hit OK, and now we have something more like a Lancet arch. Okay, so maybe in a window you might have something like this, and of course you can, once you've got this set up, you can drag it around, you can change it, and it's going to kind of change its proportions a little bit. Now there are still some constraints on it, so you can see that it's not going to deform perfectly, but it is something that you can play with after you've drawn it. So those are the two easy ones. We can also do something else with the edge polygon. So let's start again. Very common, as I said, to use, especially in the Middle Ages, to use triangles as a starting point. So let me do this one more time. Looks like I want to make sure that I get okay, we're going to change that to 3 sides. Okay, so from this little triangle, we can do a few things. We can square it off. Okay, so I'm going to go from here over and from here up. And when they cross, I know that I've got everything that I need. Okay, so this is a special kind of rectangle that we can do some interesting things with. I'm going to start with let's just use like a 2-point circle just to sort of give us another tool that we haven't used that much. I'm going to create a circle on the bottom, and let's say I want to do what's called an Ogee arch. Okay, Ogee. There are plenty of examples in your book of this where it sort of peaks up. Okay, sometimes we actually call this a dagger as well. From there, what we can also do is we can create another set of arches that are very similar but in a different position. So I'm going to say from the center over to here, and then I'm going to continue this down, and you can see when it hits just what it's doing. Okay, so I can go ahead and maybe delete, let's do a little quick trim so we can see what it is that we have when we're finished here. Okay, so now we have a nice Ogee arch. Okay, so that's another one. Really much more of a late medieval example. All right, let's try a Tudor arch. So this is going to have a little bit of setup. I'm going to go and just start with a circle. Tudor arch is going to be kind of a combination of a couple of circles and a couple of arcs, but we need to have the arcs match and be tangent. So easy way to do this, we can create a quick circle. Make sure that I'm paying attention to the radius. Okay, so this one is 1. I'm going to put one right next to it that's also 1. And I can just, to make this really clear what's going on, I'm going to create just a quick bisecting line. And what we need in order to find the points that we're going to use for the center of our compass marks for these arcs going here and here is you're just going to need a square that hits the center of each of these two circles. So I'm looking out and it says that this is 1. So I'm going to say 1 meter by 1 meter. And there I am. And so from here, all I need to do is draw some diagonals from the bottom. We're going to go through the point right here, and then what we're really looking for is where this hits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create just a couple of diagonals, and then for the next piece I just want to make sure that this stays nice and parallel, and you can see it snapping like that. That's the point that I want. Okay, and I'll do the same thing quickly over here. Okay, so we've got pretty much everything that we need. All we need to do now is get out our center point arc tool, and I'm going to go 1, 2, and right here I'm going to make sure that this hits right there. Okay, so that's right at the center. And then this one I'm going to do the same thing, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and I need to make sure that these are together. Looks like we got some wonkiness here. So what I'll do is I'll snap this one, and then I can snap this guy right to it as well. It looks like we're getting some fuzziness there. Yeah, this can sometimes happen with snapping to grid. This can kind of throw you off a little bit. So what I'm going to do to make sure we have a spot, I'm going to make sure that each of these goes over. And this is just like a quick trick. So I'm going to go and just go right past it. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then I know in this situation that if I go and hit the T key, I can just trim out what I don't need. And there's your arch. Okay, so this right here, we can trim out really anything that we don't need. So we could have a line out this way. So that's really the arch that you're looking for. Okay, so we're going to finish that one. Okay, so the next one that we're going to try to do, I'm going to skip the elliptical arch for now. Let's just do a simple trefoil. And that again is going to start with a circle. So I'll just put this all in the same sketch. I'm going to start with a circle here. It's going to be 2 this time. All right. Well, let's do this differently. Let's just start with our triangle. It's much easier. So let's go back, and we're just going to have another edge triangle. 3 sides, so an equilateral triangle. And what's nice about that is, we'll try out one of our other circle tools that is a 3-point circle tool, and that will cover that. So we have our circle in the middle, and all we really need to do is find the center. Now, Fusion already finds the center for you, which is kind of nice. But if you ever did need to find where that center was, you would start from the center point to here, and then just repeat that with the other side, and that will give you the center point. Just in case you're trying to do this in a kind of a strange way. But what we need to do now is just use our compass circle, right? So our center diameter circle, and just go from the top and do it this way. Okay, that's one form of trefoil. We can then create a circle that's going to cover the entire thing. So we could say, oh, let's see, we could do a quick center diameter circle again that just meets the top, and now we have something that's starting to resemble a trefoil at the top of a clear story window or something like that. It's kind of interesting. You can also do a different version of this. You can use the center points if you want to have a different kind of orientation to it. And in this case, you're getting the same result, but you're getting it kind of backwards, upside down, however you want to look at it. And then you have something slightly different to trim. So that's just a nice quick trick. Quatrefoils are even easier. We're going to start with a square. I'm going to go 2 by 2. And I'll just quickly bisect that. And there's a few different ways to do this. Like, just for fun, let's try the 3 tangent circle. Okay, we can go and say, I want a circle that's tangent to this line, and this line, and this line. And you can see it automatically creates a circle for me. Another way I could do this is I could start with, my kind of ordinary 2-point circle. I could say 1 to here, 1 to here, 1 to here. And then you know what you have left to trim out, and you can just quickly create your trefoil this way. Okay. So that's an easy way to do this. There's other things that you can do. You can decide that this line is just going to be a guide, and you can then let's just put the whole thing in a circle. Let's do from the center out, and there you go. So that's a really common thing that you might see as well. I will let you all look at the Quatrefoil. Those are not especially complicated, but they're kind of worth looking into. So let's just do a quick kind of example of a rose window, just for fun. And this is where things get a little bit more complicated, but it's interesting to try. So let's start with an inscribed polygon, okay? And we're going to do a 6-sided. Let's do a circumscribed instead. So I'm going to say up from the top, we're going to want a 6-sided object that is a radius of 3. Why not? Let me see if I can get this to snap on the vertical. There we go. Good. Okay, so we've got our initial object. We're just going to create some simple rays coming out from here. I'm going to make sure that all of these are guides. So I'm going to hit X on the one that I already drew. But if I start drawing, it's going to continue to do normal lines. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to hit X before I draw, and then draw. And everything that I draw from here on is going to be a construction line. So we'll just add a few of these. And I'm also hitting the midpoints here. I can explain that in a bit. So part of the goal of doing each of these rays and not going all the way across, doing them individually, and you can see I've made a few mistakes here too, so it's worth it to zoom in every now and then and have a look at what you've done. The reason that I'm doing these as individual rays is because we're going to use the midpoints of these as well. Just because this is kind of annoying, I'm going to delete it. We already know what size we are, so I'm going to delete these. It's faster just to get rid of them. All right. And I'll just wrap that up quick. Make sure we don't have too many errors here. I'll have to figure out what's going on with that one, but that's okay. All right. That's the perfectionist in many of us. I've just got to get that fixed. Okay. So let's start, I guess, there's a few ways we could do this. Let's start kind of from the middle here. I'd like to try a 2-tangent circle. Okay, so I'm going to do sort of a flower pattern that's going to kind of come around this way. So I'm going to select this one, and I can kind of roll this up and down and say, all right, well, I think I'd like to have this right about here. Okay, that'll work for me. If I wanted to, I could also create a center. If I wanted this dead in the center, I could put a guide in here and then roll this back. Let's just recreate it quickly. I'm going to do a quick 2-tangent circle. 1, 2, roll it up. I should be able to get that. So let me just draw it first. And for fun, just so we can know how to do this, I'm going to take this point and I'm going to say that it's going to be coincident with this. And that'll drop it right at the dead center. Okay. So coincidence is one of our useful constraints. Okay. So I'll take this one. And I think some of you are already guessing what I'm going to do. So this is going to be something I want to keep. So I'm going to hit X to make sure it's a normal line. And then really quickly, I can just create a circular pattern from here. And let's see, we're looking at 12. And I'll hit OK. Okay, so we're beginning to get our rose window right already. We can then do additional things inside of here. So I'm going to pause for a second and come back. I'm going to open up another file for you. Okay, so let's have a look at this geometry file. This is a design I created a while back that shows you what you can do with the same things that I've already shown you. You may recognize this guy right here. So this is a useful thing. This is our Tudor arch over here. But combining a lot of these ideas together, this is what I want to kind of show you all. Really starting from a simple quatrefoil, there's a lot that we can do. And we can see here's our Ogee arch. We can see what happens if you just take your ordinary trefoil and just keep adding arcs that complete it, right? So you can see in this case, we're drawing arches that are tangent to, that go to the triangles, but then are tangent to the circles that we already drew in order to form this shape, right? Which is sometimes just called a blade. If we look at a few other examples, we can see that we got really, really complicated in here. Here's another really common kind of thing. And we can see, if I go back, these are the kinds of things that we see. Imagine the sort of lancet, but coming to a point is really the same idea. So really think of each of these as a lancet window inside of these rose windows. So if you can do a lancet window, you can do any one of these. And remember that you only need to do one, and then you're going to do a radial pattern off of that. So really not that difficult to do. And I think you all will be able to handle most of this. I'd like to show, let's have a look at, this one's a bit unique. You know, there's a few ways that we can handle most of this, but what I'd like to show you guys, let's see, I'll pause for just a second and I'll start a new sketch. All right, so this is an interesting example here. I just want to show this very quickly. So I mentioned already the idea of what a dagger is, and often when we use that term, we're talking about things that really come to a perfect point at the top of a circle. And how you get that is really just a series of circles, and they have different relationships to each other. If you then create things that maybe don't have a single circle, a perfect circle on the bottom, like let's say you have this sort of blade shape on the bottom, often what we'll call that is a bouchette, right? So a bouchette just simply means that you're using two circles in order to create the shape, but that it also often has that point to it as well. So what I like about this example is just to show you that you can really easily create, just with a series of constraints, you can create some kind of system that allows you to sort of change things on your own, as long as you create them really, really simply. So what I'm going to do is just show a little bit of how that works. The constraints on here are really simple, okay? So these two are meeting in the middle, okay, of this line. This is also a line that has to be horizontal. This is a line that has to be vertical. These two center points are attached by a single horizontal line as well. And these two circles are tangent to each other. And this circle is tangent to this circle, right? In addition to that, this one has an equal relationship to this one, and this one has an equal relationship to that one. So what does that look like? Just very quickly sketching, right? A couple of circles that don't match. I'm going to start by saying that this one needs to be equal to this one. Okay. In addition to that, I'm going to draw a quick line and put this down and say, hit escape there. And I'm going to say that this needs to be on top of that. Okay, so if I grab this piece, now I'm moving everything. Okay, so that's true. The other thing that we need to do is make sure that this stays tangent to this. So I'm going to then say this is tangent to that, and that should push them together. Good. Another thing that I need, now that I've got this set up here, I'm just going to create another line vertical down the middle. All right, and I can see that this one already has, and I want to make sure that this one stays vertical. Okay, it says an error because it's already perpendicular, so that's no problem. We can draw another couple of circles on the bottom, and they can be kind of anywhere for now. Like, I'll just do it this way. All right, and I want to set my relationships again. So I'm going to say first this needs to be equal in size to this one. So now that's set. Let's draw a line from here to here. All right, and this needs to hit the midpoint. Okay, so what I want to do is, let's draw this. Let me delete that. I want to make sure I don't make any really weird little errors here. You can see how that can happen pretty easily. So I'll just draw this one out. Okay, one quick line. And I'll just mirror it to make sure that it's the same on both sides. And so that'll be in the midpoint. I'll hit OK. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to make sure that it sticks to that. And I'm going to take this and make sure it sticks to this one. All right, but we still have some additional things, like we want this to touch here and here. So what I want to do is take this and make sure that it stays tangent to this one. We might get something a little wacky, but yeah, that looks okay. So here we should have a system where if I want to grab something like this and just pull this out, we should be okay. Well, it looks like we need to make another constraint here. So let me pull this out and make sure. Yeah, so we're missing something. What we need is this relationship. We need to make sure that this stays tangent to this one. Okay, and so hopefully now we have our reflexive shape. Okay, so this is parametric modeling. This is one of the strengths that we haven't really delved into really much with Fusion, but I think it's actually quite useful for us. going forward. Okay, so I'll just kind of quickly finish that one up. Another thing I think is kind of useful at times if you want to just sort of think about how medieval, generally that medieval people might have, designers might have done something. Let's edit this sketch. So these are 3, 3, 3, right? If I really wanted to, I could say I'm going to have an arbitrary anything, right? I want to make sure that this stays square, so I'll say that this line needs to be equal to this line. Okay, so it's square. But what if I don't know, right? So if I don't know what the measure of this is, and you could easily get into this situation where you didn't have a straight line that you knew what it was automatically. Now you could do a constraint, and let's say you wanted to divide this into 3 pieces, right? The way that I would do this without needing to know what the dimensions are and doing the math, it's not really that hard. I can hit copy and then paste. And you can see it's immediately trying to ask me, what are you going to do? Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go point to point. Oh, really quickly. Let me Control V one more time here. I should be able to create a copy there. Oh, of course, live demos. All right, let's try it again. I'm going to create a copy here. So I'm going to check that little box, and I'm going to go point to point. So this is going to move to here. And I'll hit OK. And I'll do it again. And we'll paste it. Let's see, hopefully this time we're doing okay. So I'll just do a quick point to point again. All right, so now I've got 3 of these. I'll hit OK. Just to bisect, these are all just tools, right? Just so that I can bisect. Looks like we're getting some error in here. I think it's related to an error back in here, but we'll just ignore it for the moment. All I need to do is draw a nice line diagonally through here and here. And we now have the locations for cutting this down the middle in 3 pieces. Okay, so this is little tips and tricks. Remembering that the only thing that you're likely going to have in the Middle Ages is going to be really a yardstick, so a ruler and a compass. And they're doing a whole lot with just those simple tools. So it's just another method. And obviously the sacred numerology of 3 is very important in the Middle Ages. Certainly one of the reasons we see so many trefoils. But I wanted to show you also up here, there's one more thing I wanted to show. If we think about this just in the way that a medieval architect might do it, we're going to start with a circle, and we're going to explain a little bit about why the number 6 is so common in a lot of these designs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that this tool here is a compass, okay? And what I really want to know is, what is the distance between here and here, right? And it says 2.3, okay? So I'm going to say that it's 2.3. I'm going to hit enter. And so from there, I'm just going to go and make a quick mark, right? From this same point where this marks out, if I do the same thing, if I create another arc that is the same radius as the original circle, 2.3, I can make another mark here. All right, it looks like it's giving me some warnings, but I'm going to ignore it. Not important right now. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to turn off snap to grid so I really know what I'm snapping to here. I'm going to do the same thing one more time. 2.3. Let's try that one more time. All right, and it's doing about what we expect, right? So we're gonna keep doing that really quick. I'm gonna finish this off as quickly as I can. You can see even with my desktop that sometimes it struggles. All right, hold on just a moment. Keep hitting enter at a habit. Okay, we're gonna go make our last mark right there, okay? Good. So we have all the marks really that we need. I could do one more just to, we already know that this is it, but that's all right. I'll do it one more time. It's looking like I want to do it from here, yes. And this should go right through here. Yeah, it looks like I've got a little bit of an error, but you get the idea, right? So we're going to create quite quickly, and it looks like I probably snapped to something incorrectly. It looks like, oop, yep, I certainly did right here. So theoretically, I could shift this. Yeah, it's looking like that snapped to the wrong thing. It needs to be snapped to here. And that should, yeah, this is snapped incorrectly. So this is useful. We're going to quickly delete any constraints that we don't want. All right, that's where we want that. And now we should be getting a little bit better. It looks like we've got, yeah, we've just got a weird error somewhere in here. One of these got thrown off, but that's all right. So what we're seeing here, generally speaking, is an easy way to get, without any complicated tools, we've now divided this into 6 pieces. Okay, and it's giving me all sorts of errors right now. It's just complaining. If you get into that situation, you can always just sort of back it up. The undo button is your friend. As soon as this turns blue again, that means that the warning has been fixed. Okay, so yeah, not a big deal, but that's just another quick trick that I wanted to show you all. So that's it. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to trim this up, and we're going to meet in a little bit, and I'll have this available for you online. If you're curious about other ideas about Gothic geometry, read the Bork article, and also make sure you keep an eye on the resources folder in Sakai. Okay, thanks, guys.